Welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're counting down 10 times football was disgraced by acts of huge disrespect. We begin with the world's two biggest footballing stars. No matter on your preference, it is undeniable that Ronaldo and Messi are the finest footballers of the past decade, and like with all great talents, they have been met with jealousy and hatred from some bitter fans. In January 2016, the two turned up for their usual battle for the Ballon d'Or, and the Portuguese powerhouse lost out to the Argentine magician on the night. But to make things even more humiliating for Ronaldo, just hours later, a statue of him in his hometown of Funchal was defaced, with Messi's name and number painted onto his back. And a year later, Messi would suffer a similar, even more brutal ordeal. His statue in Buenos Aires, erected following his initial announcement of international retirement, had its head and body chopped off by vandals. The forward has endured a complex relationship with fans in his homeland over the years, but unlike with Ronaldo, this was more likely to be bronze-hungry criminals than anything aimed personally at Messi. The Wenger Out Brigade. For the second entry in our list, we go along to the all-too-familiar territory of the Emirates Stadium, and one of the most divided fan bases of recent times. But don't worry, we're not going to discuss whether Wenger should or shouldn't leave Arsenal. We're all bored of that now. Instead, let's take a look at a group of fans who brought the whole debate into disrepute. The Wenger Out Brigade arose after years of underachievement in North London, but some of their actions have been less than savoury to say the least, and even led the club's longest-serving manager to label his treatment as a disgrace in 2017. Perhaps the most disrespectful moment in this whole affair came in 2014, when following a 3-2 defeat away to Stoke, Wenger became victim of a tirade of verbal abuse as he and his team boarded the train back to London. A small group of so-called fans waited for him at the station before hurling insults and telling him to fuck off. But Wenger got the last laugh in May 2017, signing a new 2-year contract with the Gunners. Adebayor versus Arsenal. Sticking with Arsenal now, and a player who gave as good as he got and then some. Togolese striker Emmanuel Adebayor was a key asset for the Gunners, scoring 46 league goals in 104 games, before he was sold to Manchester City for £25 million in the summer of 2009. Gunners fans, seeing this as a sign of the striker's greed, decided to take aim at their former player. According to Adebayor, they sang "Your mother is a whore, your father washes elephants" when he turned up for his final meeting with Arsene Wenger. But they would soon get what was coming to them. 2 months later, Adebayor scored the winner against the Gunners in a 4-2 victory for the citizens, and ran the full length of the pitch to knee slide in front of the Arsenal faithful. This obviously enraged the travelling supporters, and they raced to the front to express their anger, while one even attempted to throw a chair at the striker. A mutually disrespectful situation, but surely one of the greatest celebrations in football history. Cassano versus Spalletti. Giuliano Spalletti may have been relatively successful over his 2 spells in charge of Roma, but one player who didn't give him the respect he deserved was, surprise surprise, Antonio Cassano. Cassano has appeared on many of our lists for his unconventional behaviour, and the events leading to his departure from Roma were no different. Brought to the Eternal City for €30 million as a youngster in 2001, Cassano was destined to form the ultimate attacking partnership with Francesco Totti. But he didn't quite live up to his billing, and following Spalletti's arrival at the Stadio Olimpico, decided to try and belittle his new boss, telling him, "You're not coaching those useless players you had at Udinese, this isn't your house, it's my house." He was almost immediately sold to Real Madrid, where his relations with Fabio Capello were similarly sour. The Hands of Suarez. Moving to his beloved Barcelona in 2014 may have softened Luis Suarez, but before that he repeatedly made himself world football's most divisive character. As we know, his teeth were involved on many occasions, but we're going to focus on his hands here. In the quarter-finals of the 2010 World Cup, Suarez's Uruguay were drawing 1-1 with Ghana in the final minute of extra time. Dominic Adeyeye sent his header goal-bound, certain to send the Black Stars through, when Suarez produced a goalkeeper's save to keep the tie alive. He was obviously sent off for his actions, but before he made his way to the tunnel, the striker watched Asamoah Gyan miss the resulting penalty and celebrated like a madman to rub salt into the wounds of the opposing fans. But that was nothing compared to his show of disrespect 2 years later while playing for Liverpool. Having been charged for his racial slur against Manchester United left-back Patrice Evra during the club's meeting at Anfield in 2011-2012, there was much anticipation ahead of the return match at Old Trafford. Most were hoping that Evra, United's captain on the day, would do his best to dampen tensions, but it turned out it wasn't him they needed to worry about. Amazingly, Suarez decided to refuse Evra's handshake at the start of the game, losing the respect of many who had previously sympathised with the Uruguayan striker and setting up a particularly bad-tempered derby. Man United won, and Evra quite rightly taunted Suarez in the aftermath. Luis Moreno and The Owl. Now, disrespecting your peers and elders is one thing, but mistreating an animal is a whole other kettle of fish. Despite the pun you oh so cleverly noticed there, the animal involved here was not actually a fish. Instead, it was an owl. And the footballer in question is Luis Moreno, a Panamanian defender who was playing for Colombian side Deportivo Pereira in 2011 when his rather careless treatment of said owl was understandably greeted with outrage. The owl in question was the unofficial mascot of Junior Barranquilla, the club they were playing that day, and it landed on the side of the pitch injured and unable to move after being hit by the ball. Instead of alerting the referee or taking the bird to safety, Moreno kicked the poor bird off the field, making a significant connection with its head. The guilty player later said he was trying to help it fly away. Don't know how you expected that one to work out, but then admitted it was done in anger and apologised to the whole country. Sadly, the owl later died due to stress, and Moreno was ordered to pay the veterinary fees as well as do community service at a local zoo. How fitting. Jose Mourinho versus Barcelona. In Act 4 we have one of our usual culprits. Jose Mourinho is never far from controversy, and during his time at Real Madrid, he couldn't get enough of it. The Portuguese manager's feud with rivals Barcelona goes back a long way, and after taking the Bernabeu dugout position, he relished taking aim at the Catalan club. Most notably, he fueled conspiracy theories in the press with accusations of a UEFA Barca match-fixing plot following Real's defeat in the 2011 Champions League final. But he took things a step further just months later, during the two clubs' Spanish Super Cup final. El Clasicos were particularly angry affairs at this time, and a brawl broke out between players and coaching staff following a wild challenge by Marcelo on Cesc Fabregas. Mourinho got a bit caught up in the moment, to say the least, and took it upon himself to poke Pep's number 2, Tito Villanova, in the eye. Nasty. But even worse, the Madrid manager blankly refused to apologise following the incident, saying instead that he was protecting the interests of the club. Classy as ever, Jose. El Hadji Diouf. Undoubtedly one of the most controversial characters to have ever graced the British footballing landscape, El Hadji Diouf was trouble from the word go after arriving at Liverpool in 2002. The Senegalese forward became famous for his dirty play, spitting at opposition players and fans, and generally disgracing himself on a regular basis. One said fan was just 11 years old. But in 2011, his reputation hit a new low while he was playing for Blackburn. In an FA Cup clash against QPR, opposition forward Jamie Mackie came through a nasty clash with a broken leg. And while he lay on the floor in agony, Diouf somehow took it upon himself to stand over him and taunt him. This led to outspoken Hoops manager Neil Warnock saying after the match, "I'd call him a sewer rat, but that would be an insult to sewer rats." Brutal, but probably deserved. The abuse of Sully Montari. Now we have a footballer who found respect hard to come by from all ends during one recent incident in Italy. In a match between Pescara and Cagliari, Ghanaian midfielder Sully Montari was racially abused by a group of opposition fans. When Montari explained to the referee what had happened and reasoned with him to stop the game, you'd have expected the official to see his point. But instead he yellow carded him, and the player was subsequently issued with a one-match ban after leaving the pitch in protest. Furthermore, Cagliari were not even punished for the incident, with Serie A ruling the guilty group of fans too small to be significant enough for the club to be charged. After continued pressure from international bodies, Montari's ban was finally lifted. Silence isn't golden. Sadly, something that still hasn't been kicked out of football completely is the tendency for some fans to make noise when there is a minute's silence in the stadium. We have seen it on multiple occasions, from Chelsea fans shouting murderers during a tribute to the victims of the Hillsborough disaster, to England fans not observing silences for multiple tragedies. A particularly disgraceful episode came in 2015, following the horrific terrorist attacks in Paris. The next week, at a match between Turkey and Greece in Istanbul, some home fans went as far as to boo the minute silence. And to make matters even worse, this came just a month after a bomb attack killed 100 in the Turkish capital of Ankara. Some commentators said afterwards that it was done not out of disrespect, but to protest the fact no such tribute had been made by FIFA in regard to Ankara's terrorist attack. But the last time we checked, showing disregard for innocent victims is not a very honourable form of protest.
So what did you think to our list? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please check out our other content by clicking on screen. And as ever, please do like and subscribe.